My name is Elara Quinn. I was 19 years old the night my parents threw me out. Not kicked me out, slowly, not you have a month, not let's talk about this. They gave me a bag and a door and nothing else. It was raining. I remember that detail because I kept thinking, if this was a movie, the rain would be dramatic, symbolic, something meaningful. But in real life, it was just cold and heavy, and it soaked through everything I owned in less than 10 minutes. It started with a conversation that wasn't supposed to be a fight. I had just come home from my part-time job, grocery store cashier, minimum wage, late shift. My feet hurt, my back hurt, and all I wanted was food and sleep. Instead, my father was waiting in the living room, lights off, just the TV flickering against his face. That was never a good sign. "Sit down," he said. I didn't argue. I never did. I sat. My mother was in the kitchen, arms crossed, watching like she already knew how this would end. "What's going on?" I asked. My father muted the TV. Silence filled the room. Then he said it. "You're not going to college." It wasn't a question. It wasn't a discussion. It was a decision. I blinked. I got accepted," I said. "I showed you the letter." "We know," my mother said sharply. "Then what?" "You're not going," my father repeated. "We're not paying for it." "I didn't ask you to pay for it," I said quickly. "I applied for loans. I got partial aid. I can work." "No." That word hit like a wall. I swallowed. "Why?" My mother stepped forward. "Because it's a waste." A waste. The words sat there between us. "I want to study business," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I can build something." "You already have something," she snapped. "This family." I stared at her. "I can have both." "No," she said, "you can't." My father leaned forward. "You're needed here." There it was. Not concern, not love, use. My younger brother still lived at home. My parents ran a small convenience store, long hours, early mornings, late nights. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted help, free help. "I've been helping," I said quietly, "for years." "And you'll keep helping," my mother replied. "No," I said. The word came out before I could stop it. The room froze, because in my house, I didn't say no. My father's expression hardened. "What did you say?" I felt my heart pounding in my chest, but something inside me didn't back down. "I said no," I repeated. "I'm going to college." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. My mother laughed, not kindly. "Listen to her," she said. "She thinks she has a choice." "I do have a choice." That was it. That was the moment everything broke. My father stood up slowly, walked past me, didn't say a word, just went to the hallway, opened the closet, pulled out a bag, and threw it at my feet. "Pack." I stared at it, confused. "What?" "You heard me." My stomach dropped. "You're not serious." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something I had never seen before. Not anger, not frustration, finality. "You don't want to be part of this family," he said. "Then you don't get to live in this house." My chest tightened. "I didn't say that." "You said no." "That doesn't mean—" "It means enough." My mother stepped in, cold, controlled. "You have 10 minutes." 10 minutes for 19 years of my life. I didn't move at first, because part of me still believed they wouldn't actually do it. They were just trying to stare me, push me, break me, like always. So I stood there, waiting, hoping, until my father walked to the front door, opened it, and let the rain pour in. That's when I knew. This wasn't a threat. This was happening. I bent down slowly, picked up the bag. My hands were shaking. "What am I supposed to do?" I whispered. My mother didn't hesitate. "Figure it out." Just like that. No plan, no support, no safety net, just gone. I walked to my room, closed the door, and stood there for a second, looking at everything I couldn't take. My bed, my desk, my books, my life. I grabbed what I could, a few clothes, my documents, the acceptance letter. I folded it carefully, placed it at the top of the bag, like it still mattered, like it still meant something. Then I zipped it up, opened the door, and walked back out. They were both standing there, waiting, not stopping me, not softening, just watching. I walked past them, step by step, toward the door. The rain was louder now, heavier, colder. I stopped at the threshold, turned back, just once, because no matter what, they were still my parents. "You're really doing this?" I asked. My father didn't answer. My mother did. Yes. That was it. No hesitation, no regret, just yes. I nodded slowly, because there was nothing left to say. Then I stepped outside. The rain hit instantly, soaking through my clothes, my bag, my hair, everything. Behind me, the door closed, locked, and just like that, I had nothing. No home, no money, no plan, just a bag and a choice I refused to take back. I stood there for a moment, in the rain, alone, cold, scared, and then I took a breath, tightened my grip on the bag, and started walking, because if they thought throwing me out would break me, they didn't know me at all. The first night, I didn't have anywhere to go. That's the part people don't talk about when they say, "You'll figure it out," because figuring it out takes time, and time is the one thing you don't have when it's cold, dark, and you're standing on a sidewalk with a bag and nowhere to sleep. I walked for almost an hour. No direction, no plan, just moving, because standing still made it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. My phone battery was at 23%. I checked it every minute, like it might magically go up. It didn't. I thought about calling someone, friends, classmates, anyone. But the truth is, I didn't have anyone close enough to call at midnight and say, "Hey, my parents just threw me out, and I have nowhere to go."
Hey, I don't have a home anymore. So I kept walking until I saw it. A bus stop. Small, metal bench, half covered from the rain. Not much, but it was something. I sat down, pulled my jacket tighter around me, and tried not to cry. I lasted about 3 minutes, because it hits you all at once. Not just the fear, not just the cold, but the realization they really did it. They chose this over me, over my future, over everything. I wiped my face quickly because crying didn't help. Crying didn't change anything. I needed a plan, even a bad one. Morning, 6:12 a.m. I didn't sleep. Not really, just closed my eyes and waited for the sky to change. When the sun finally came up, everything looked different, less dramatic, more real. Cars passed, people walked by, normal life continued, like mine hadn't just fallen apart. I stood up slowly, my body stiff, cold in places I didn't know could feel cold. And that's when it hit me again. I had nowhere to go. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to work. The grocery store. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, too normal, like I didn't belong there anymore. I clocked in, put on my name tag, Elara, smiled. "Good morning. Do you need a bag? Have a nice day." Over and over again, like nothing had changed, like I wasn't running on zero sleep, like I didn't spend the night at a bus stop. Around noon, my manager noticed. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. I almost laughed. "Rough night." He studied me for a second, then sighed. "Take your break." I nodded, walked to the back, sat down, and just stared at the wall, because I didn't even know what to do with my break anymore. Normally, I'd scroll my phone, eat something, relax. But now, my brain was stuck on one thought. Where am I going tonight? The first call. I finally did it. I called someone. Maya. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough. Or at least, I thought we were. She answered on the third ring. Hey, what's up? I swallowed. Hey, can I ask you something? Yeah, of course. I hesitated, then said it. I don't have a place to stay tonight. Silence. Just a second, but long enough. Oh, she said. I got kicked out, I added quickly. Just for a few days, maybe. I just need somewhere to... I wish I could, she cut in, but my parents would freak out. Of course they would. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I get it. I'm really sorry, she said. Maybe try your aunt or something. I almost laughed again. If I had an aunt I could call, I wouldn't be calling her. It's okay, I said. Don't worry about it. We hung up. And just like that, option gone. That night, I didn't go back to the bus stop. I couldn't. So I walked again. Different direction, different streets, same problem. Until I found it. A 24-hour diner. Warm lights, people inside, safe. I walked in slowly, sat at the corner booth, ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, coffee, $1.50. I made it last 3 hours, sipping slowly, stretching every minute, hoping no one would notice. Eventually, they did. The waitress came over, kind eyes, tired smile. You waiting for someone? She asked. I shook my head. No. She looked at my bag, then at me, and something in her expression softened. You can stay a little longer, she said quietly, but after that, I can't keep you here all night. I nodded. Thank you. And I meant it, because sometimes kindness isn't big. It's just not making things worse. The lowest point. By week 2, I was exhausted, mentally, physically, emotionally. I found a cheap motel for a few nights using my savings, but that ran out fast. I skipped meals, saved every rupee, worked extra shifts, and still, it wasn't enough. One night, I sat on the floor of that motel room, back against the wall, bag beside me, and I finally asked myself something I had been avoiding. Was I wrong? Should I have just said yes, stayed, given up college, helped them? At least I'd have a bed, food, a place. Tears filled my eyes because for a second, just 1 second, I almost convinced myself that maybe this was my fault. And then I reached into my bag, pulled out the acceptance letter, unfolded it slowly, and read it again. Congratulations. That word, that one word, pulled me back. No, this wasn't my fault. Wanting more wasn't wrong. Wanting a future wasn't selfish. They didn't throw me out because I failed. They threw me out because I refused to stay small. And that realization, that changed everything. The turning point. The next morning, I walked into my manager's office, closed the door. I need more hours, I said. He looked at me. You're already working a lot. I need more. Something in my voice must have hit differently because he didn't argue. All right, he said. We'll figure something out. And for the first time since that night, I felt something shift. Not relief, not safety, but control. Small, fragile, but real. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping someone would fix this. I was building something from nothing. End of the year. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy, and it almost broke me. But I survived. I found a shared room, tiny, barely enough space to breathe, but it was mine. I enrolled in college, part-time, slow, but steady. Work, study, sleep, repeat. No shortcuts, no help, no family. Just me and the life I refused to give up. But what I didn't know yet was that this struggle, this pain, this version of me they created was building something far stronger than they ever expected. Because 3 years later, they would stand in front of me again. Not in control, not demanding, but begging. And that time, everything would be different. The funny thing about hitting rock bottom is you stop being afraid of falling because you already did, and you survived it. That first year didn't make me stronger overnight. It made me tired. It made me sharp. It made me careful. I stopped expecting help, stopped waiting for someone to notice I was struggling, stopped believing anyone was coming to save me, because no one did, so I saved myself. The routine that changed everything. My life became simple, brutal, but simple. Wake up, work, class, study, sleep, repeat. No weekends, no breaks.
No mental health days, because survival didn't give you those. I worked early shifts at the grocery store, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then classes from 3 to 8, then studying until midnight, then sleep, then again and again and again. People think success comes from motivation. It doesn't. Motivation fades. What carried me? Routine, discipline, and something deeper, a quiet refusal to go back. The first upgrade. About 8 months in, something changed. Not big, not dramatic, but important. My manager called me into his office. "You've been consistent," he said. "Reliable." I nodded, didn't say anything. I had learned something by then. Don't speak too soon. Let people finish. "I'm promoting you," he continued. "Shift supervisor." My heart skipped. Not because of the title, because of what it meant. More money, more stability, more control. "Thank you," I said. And I meant it, because that was the first time since I got kicked out that my life moved forward, not sideways, not barely surviving, forward. The room that became a home. I moved out of the shared room a few months later, not into something big, not into something impressive, but into something mine. A studio apartment, small, one window, a kitchen that barely fit a stove and a sink. But when I stood in the middle of that room, holding the keys in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. No one could tell me to leave. No one could throw a bag at my feet. No one could decide my future for me. That space, it wasn't just an apartment. It was proof. I didn't need them. College wasn't easy. I wish I could say I thrived immediately, that I became top of my class, that everything just clicked. It didn't. I was exhausted all the time. There were nights I fell asleep with my laptop open, mornings I woke up with notes stuck to my face, days I forgot to eat, and moments where I wondered if I was still falling behind. Because everyone else, they had support. Parents paying tuition, homes to go back to, people cheering them on. I had silence and pressure. But here's the difference. They had comfort. I had hunger. And hunger pushes harder. The second turning point. It happened during my second year. A professor called me after class. "Stay for a minute," he said. I thought I did something wrong, missed something, fell behind. But instead, he handed me my assignment, top score. "I've been watching your work," he said. That sentence hit differently. Watching, not judging, not criticizing, seeing. "You're not just completing tasks," he continued, "you're thinking." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever said something like that before me. "You ever considered internships?" he asked. I shook my head. "I don't have time," I said honestly. "I work full time." He leaned back. "Make time." I almost laughed. People love saying that, make time, like time is just sitting around waiting to be used. But something in his tone made me pause. "This could change things for you," he added. Change things. That phrase stuck with me. The risk. For the first time in 2 years, I took a risk. I reduced my work hours, not by much, but enough. Enough to apply, enough to try. And after weeks of rejections, one email came through. Interview invitation. I read it 3 times because I wasn't used to doors opening. The interview. I wore my only formal outfit. Simple, clean, professional.
But my hands were shaking the entire time because I wasn't just walking into an interview, I was walking into a different life. "Tell me about yourself," they said, and for a second I froze. Because what do you say? Do you tell them you got kicked out at 19, that you slept in diners, that you built everything from nothing? No, you tell them what they understand. "I'm disciplined," I said. "I learn fast, and I don't quit." That was enough, because sometimes simple truth hits harder than a perfect story. The first big win. I got the internship. Part-time, low pay, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the door it opened. Office environment, real projects, people who talked about growth, strategy, expansion, words I had only seen in textbooks. And for the first time, I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was part of something bigger. The glow-up, quiet but real. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, everything started changing. Better income, better skills, better confidence. I learned how to speak in meetings, how to present ideas, how to negotiate, how to say no, and mean it. That was the biggest shift, because once you learn to say no, everything changes. The moment it hit me. One evening, I came home late, dropped my bag, sat on the edge of my bed, and looked around. My apartment, my space, my life. No noise, no pressure, no one telling me who to be. And it hit me. They didn't just throw me out, they set me free. That realization, that was power. 3 years later, I graduated, not with perfect grades, not with honors, but with something better, proof, a job offer waiting, a stable income, a life I built from nothing, and more importantly, a version of myself they couldn't control anymore. No guilt, no pressure, no fear, just clarity. But life has a strange way of coming full circle, because just when everything finally felt stable, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello?" Silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. "Elara." My grip tightened on the phone. My mother. And the way she said my name, it wasn't sharp, it wasn't controlling, it wasn't demanding, it was desperate. That's when I knew. Something had changed. And this time, they weren't the ones in control anymore. I hadn't heard my mother's voice in 3 years. Not a call, not a message, not even a happy birthday. Nothing. So when I heard her say my name, Elara, it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like a warning. I didn't respond right away. I just held the phone to my ear and waited. Because silence makes people reveal themselves. And she did. "We need to talk," she said. Not, "I miss you." Not, "How are you?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "We need." I almost smiled, because some things never change. "What do you want?" I asked calmly. There was a pause, longer this time. "We're going through a difficult situation," she said carefully. "Of course you are. That's why you called. Not because you care, because you need something." I leaned back in my chair. "Be specific." Another pause. Then, "It's your father." That made me sit up slightly. "What about him?" "He's not well." The words came out slower now, less controlled. "He had to stop working. The store isn't doing well. We're behind on payments and—" There it was, the real reason. Money. Not health, not family. Money. "And?" I asked. My voice didn't shake, didn't soften, didn't break, just flat. "We might lose the house," she said quietly. "The house. The same house they threw me out of, the same door they locked behind me, the same place where I stood in the rain with a bag and nowhere to go." I let that sit between us, heavy, uncomfortable, real. "And you called me because—" I asked. My mother exhaled, because now she had to say it, the thing she never thought she'd have to say to me. "We need help." The shift. 3 years ago, I would have reacted, emotionally, immediately. I would have felt guilty, responsible, torn. But now, I felt something else. Distance, clarity, control. "I'm busy," I said, and I hung up. The second call.
She called back immediately. Of course she did, because people who are used to control don't accept silence easily. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. What? This time there was no pretending, no softness. Elara, please, she said, don't do this. Don't do what? Set boundaries? Protect myself? Give back exactly what you gave me? Do what? I asked. You know what, she snapped. There was her real her, cracking through the
Here's
desperation.
the truth.
You're
Guilt
being
only
cold.
lives where
I let
doubt
out a small
exists.
breath.
And I had no doubt, because I didn't say no out of anger, I said no out of understanding. Understanding that love without respect is just control. Understanding that helping someone who hurt you without accountability isn't kindness. It's self-betrayal, and I had already betrayed myself once. I wasn't doing it again. What happened to them? I didn't hear from them for a while after that. Weeks, then months. Life moved on. Mine did, at least. Work got busier, I got promoted again, moved into a bigger apartment, started building something real, stable, independent, peaceful. And then one day, I heard about them. Not from them, from someone else. A distant relative. The kind that only shows up when there's news. They sold the house, she said, casually. Just like that. Sold. Gone. The place I grew up. The place I was thrown out of. The place they tried to control me from. It wasn't theirs anymore. They moved into a smaller place, far from the neighborhood, far from the people who saw everything, far from the version of their life they couldn't hold on to. And my father? He never went back to work. His health didn't recover the way they hoped. My mother picked up shifts, part-time, then full-time. For the first time in her life, she had to carry weight she always placed on others. And Kyle? He stayed in that small apartment, kept his job, kept showing up. Slowly, he became something he had never been before, responsible. Not because someone saved him, but because no one did. The unexpected message. Almost a year later, I got a message. Not from my mother, not from my father, from Kyle. Just one line. I get it now. That was it. No excuses, no blame, no requests. Just understanding. And strangely, that meant more than an apology. Because for the first time, he wasn't looking for someone to fix his life. He was owning it. The final realization. One Sunday morning, I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, sunlight coming through the glass, quiet, peaceful, mine, and I thought about everything. The night I got kicked out, the bus stop, the diner, the struggle, the growth, the moment they stood at my door asking for help, and the moment I said no. And I realized something important. They thought they were teaching me a lesson that night, when they gave me that bag, when they opened that door, when they told me to figure it out. And they did, just not the lesson they intended. They taught me that I didn't need them, that I could survive without them, that I could build a life on my own terms. They thought they were taking everything from me, but what they actually did was remove the one thing holding me back: dependence. Closure without reunion. People always ask, did you forgive them? Here's the truth. Forgiveness doesn't always look like reconciliation. I don't hate them. I don't carry anger every day. But I also don't pretend nothing happened. I didn't go back. I didn't rebuild the relationship. Because some doors, once they close, they're not meant to be reopened. And that's okay. Closure doesn't require both sides. Sometimes it's just you deciding you're done. The life I built. Today, I have more than I ever imagined, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, personally. I have peace. I have control. I have a life that no one can take from me. And most importantly, I have boundaries, strong ones, clear ones, unbreakable ones. Final message. If you're listening to this and you've ever been made to feel like you're selfish for choosing your own future, you're not. If you've ever been told you owe someone your life just because they're family, you don't. And if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself,
choose yourself. Every time. Because the people who truly love you, they don't ask you to shrink so they can feel bigger. They don't take from you to fix someone else. They don't hand you a bag and call it love. The last line. 3 years ago, they gave me a bag and a door. Today, I have a home they'll never step
Cold?
inside again.
I repeated.
And
That's
that was the
interesting.
biggest
You're
mistake
our daughter.
they ever made.
And you're my parents, I said calmly, but that didn't stop you from throwing me out. Silence. Sharp. Unavoidable. That was different, she said quickly. Different. That word again. Everything is always different when it's convenient. How? I asked. You were being difficult. You wouldn't listen. You chose your own path. Yes, I cut in. And you chose to lock me out in the rain. Her breathing changed. Faster now. You're holding on to the past, she said. No, I'm remembering it. Big difference. I'm responding to it, I corrected. The visit. 2 days later, they showed up at my apartment, unannounced, of course, because boundaries were never their strength. I heard the knock. Sharp. Impatient. Familiar. I didn't rush. Didn't panic. Didn't feel anything. I just walked to the door and opened it. And there they were. My mother. My father. 3 years older, but somehow smaller. My father looked thinner, weaker, his shoulders slightly hunched. My mother looked tired, lines on her face I didn't remember. And for a brief moment, just a second, I saw them not as authority, but as people. Aging, struggling, human. And then I remembered the rain, and the bag, and the door, and that moment passed. What are you doing here? I asked. My mother stepped forward. We needed to see you. I didn't move. You should have called. We did. I hung up. Yes, she said tightly. We noticed. I leaned against the doorframe, relaxed, unbothered. Then you had your answer. The performance. She switched strategies. I saw it instantly. The tears, the soft voice, the trembling hands. Elara, we're in trouble. No, you're in need. Different thing. We might lose everything, she continued. Your father can't work. The store is failing. We don't know what to do. I looked at my father. He didn't meet my eyes, just stood there, silent, like before, only now he wasn't in control. What do you want from me? I asked. Say it. Say the words. She hesitated, because asking means lowering yourself, and she wasn't used to that. We need financial help, she said finally. There it is. The truth. Clear. Simple. Ugly. The power reversal. 3 years ago, they stood in the doorway, and I stood outside. Now, they stood outside, and I stood in the doorway. Funny how life works. I can't help you, I said. My mother froze. What? I said no. The same word, the same tone, but this time I wasn't the one being punished for it. You have money now, she said quickly. You have a job. You can help us get back on our feet. I won't. Her face changed from desperation to disbelief. Are you serious? Yes. You'd let us lose the house? I held her gaze, steady, unmoving. You let me lose mine. Silence. Heavy. Final. That's not the same. It is to me. The breaking point. My father finally spoke, his voice low, rough. Elara. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see authority. I saw regret. We made a mistake, he said. That word hit differently. Mistake. Not justification, not excuse. Mistake. But still, not enough. You didn't make a mistake, I said quietly. You made a choice. He flinched slightly, because that truth cuts deeper. The final decision. My mother stepped forward again, anger creeping back in. "So that's it?" she said. "You're just going to abandon your family?" Abandon. The irony. Almost poetic. I took a step back, put one hand on the door. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said calmly. "You did." And then I closed the door. After, I stood there for a second, hand still on the handle, listening. No knocking, no shouting, no begging. Just silence. They left. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel torn. I didn't feel weak. I felt free. After I closed the door, nothing dramatic happened. No music, no sudden breakdown, no regret crashing in. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels unfamiliar at first, because for most of my life, silence meant tension, waiting for the next argument, the next demand, the next moment I'd have to prove myself. But this silence was different. This silence was mine. The first night, after I sat on my couch, the same couch I bought with my first real paycheck, not expensive, not perfect, but mine. I stared at the door for a long time, half expecting them to knock again, to push harder, to try one last time. But they didn't, and that's when it hit me. They finally understood. Not emotionally, not deeply, but practically. They knew I wasn't the same person anymore. No guilt, just clarity. People think moments like that come with guilt, that you sit there questioning yourself, wondering if you went too far, if you should have helped, if you're a bad person.